We can think, now we have this precious human life with full of potential. Therefore, we must utilize this potential or this life with so much potential properly in the most best way and not waste it. And the best way to make our life meaningful and positive is to be able to be help and service and benefit to other sentient beings as much as we can. And to be able to be help, benefit, service to others as well as oneself. We need to have a sense of love, compassion, good heart. Without the good heart of loving kindness and compassion, it's hard to be any benefit and help to others. And to be able to have a strong, good heart of loving kindness, compassion, we need to practice, meditate, contemplate. Even though some people might be born naturally more compassionate, but they can still improve those compassion. And for those who have less compassion, we can cultivate and improve them through meditation and practices. Only through love, compassion, we can bring more peace in others and in oneself. And may our all activities in our whole life, especially this year, this week, this month, this week, and particularly today, our act of being here together become cause and conditions to cultivate and fully develop loving kindness, compassion, the good heart of loving kindness, compassion, and the wisdom. And through the wisdom and compassion, may we be able to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be even more benefit, even more help to each and every sentient beings. Okay.
Page 73, what was the response? The founder,
The endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, a completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect knowledge and in good conduct, Sukha, the knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings between teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened being, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya plane, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge.
page 75, the second verse down. Homage.
Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devour homage, to all worthy with respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms atoms in all aspects. With the supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Perform only virtuous. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teachings of the Buddha. A star at visual appreciation, a flame of lime, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning and cloud. See conditioned things as is. Through these merits, many sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four of falls, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Page 98, or it might be at the bottom of 97 in some of the prayer books, the short mandala offering.
Shibuji Kyoshin Meto Shari Rale Shi Nyi Ge Badi Sangye Shindu Mite Uwai Dopunanta Shinla Kepasho Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kani Hayami.
Refuge in Bodhisattva, sacrificing death. I go
For refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create to listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentients. Sangye Chodan Choge Chonam La Chanchu Parto Dane Kyak Dagi Choshe Gibe Sonam Ge Lola Penje Sangye Duba Sangye Chodan Choge Chonam La Chanchu Parto Dane Kyak Soche Dagi Choshe Gibe Sonam Ge Dola Penje Sangye Duba Kanje Duje Nizone Tawa Dunje Bangbeje Dambe Chune Dunjebe Kodam De La Chatso. So last week I think I just touched on the verse number 9, and and then you know as it is said there, as long as we are in samsara, um, whether we are in high rebirth such as human lives, or whether we have a lower rebirth, such as animal realms, no matter whether high rebirth or low rebirth, as long as we're in samsara, nobody is free from the sufferings. Nobody can escape the sufferings. As long as we are in that, we all go through, the suffering of birth, suffering of sickness, suffering of aging, suffering of death, and in between, different level of suffering and pain, suffering of hunger, suffering of thirsty, suffering of, not being liked by others, loved by others, the suffering of not getting what you want, the suffering of, encountering what you do not want, the suffering of changes, especially when things seems going well in our life, we don't want those to change, but can't stop those changes. And so suffering of changes, so, and then, the suffering of so much heat, suffering of cold, suffering of, natural disasters, and then so many mental sufferings, so much fear, so much worries, so much yeah. So there is that sufferings, and even we are not in, really that kind of suffering or pain, obvious suffering and pain, even when we have some relief from those obvious suffering or pain, the potential is always there, not free from the potential. As long as we have those karmic potentials, that could change, immediately. The potential is always there. I am feeling healthy now, but that could change any moment, any time. The potential is there, as long as there is the karmic potential to go something wrong and have sickness, and then when external immediate cause and condition come together, that could change any moment. Even though suffering is not obvious there, that let's say suffering of sickness, but there is the potential to change that any moment. And that is same in everything's, everything's. Even when we have this, when we don't have suffering of conflict in our relationship, in every kind of relationship, be between couples, be between children and parents, be between friends, teachers, students, even though at the moment we might have good relationship, but again, the potential to go wrong is always there. And then producing the pain and suffering is always there. As long as we have those karmic potential there, unless we don't have any more karmic potential left there in our mind stream. So as long as there is that potential, and then when external conditions come together, then that could change anything. And everything's, maybe we don't have any pain and suffering of hunger, thirsty at the moment. Maybe we don't have any suffering of poverty, like many other beings in the world. But again, we can't take for granted that could also change. that will also change, just as it has changed for so many people. That from having a nice home to becoming homeless, having enough to support others from becoming not able to support themselves. The potentials, is there, the karmic potential is there. And so therefore, if you look from that, no matter where you are, it's hard to, as long as we're in samsara with that kind of potential, karmic potential, it's hard to escape the pain, sufferings. And even the contaminated happiness, the samsaric happiness, pleasure that we call happiness, pleasure, samsaric pleasure, happiness, that is the happiness that we are familiar with, contaminated. Even those happiness, even we do have those happiness in our life, to be able to enjoy nice food, nice drink. When it is hot, we can have a cooler turn on. When it is too hot, cold, we can turn on heat. Even though maybe we might have a good relationship, even though we might have good job, um, and happiness that come from all of that, but again, those happiness are very, as he explained in that, is like a very unstable, like a dew, like a moment of the dew on the grass blade. It only lasts for a very short moment. Unstable, unlasting. Unstable, unlasting. Mm. Until we have uncontaminated happiness, the happiness of liberation, nirvana, all, contaminated happiness are so fragile, so um, um, unstable, not lasting, and because of that, I think that is why a lot of the fear, the worry we have is that, because we know they are not lasting, and there is always fear of losing that. If something is lasting, if we have a good experience, happiness, joy, and if we know it is going to last forever, probably we wouldn't have the fear and worry, a lot of fear, the worry that we will lose them, the possibility of losing them, all that, so therefore that is, and so because the nature of such happiness is such impermanent and such a fragile and is such a unlasting, unstable, and so then that leads to the fear and worry of all of that until we find lasting happiness, true lasting happiness. And that true lasting happiness only comes when we are able to free from the samsara. And we are able to free from samsara only when we are able to overcome all the defilement, all the delusions. As long as we are under the influence and control of the defilement, the delusions, you are still in samsara. As long as you are still in samsara, we cannot have that true lasting happiness. And so therefore, in order to obtain and achieve true lasting happiness of liberation or nirvana, then we should be able to overcome free from the samsara. In order to free from the samsara, we have to free from the cause of the samsara, and that is the contaminated karma, actions, and the defilements, the delusion, especially the defilement delusions, because due to defilement delusion, that's why we create the contaminated karma and then produce the samsara and the suffering that come in samsara. And so therefore, in order to and in order to overcome the defilement, then we really have to first realize and understand how those defilements, those delusions are really the source of all our pain and suffering. If we don't really understand that, if we don't understand those defilements are the really cause of all our pain and suffering, you wouldn't put so much effort to overcome them. If we don't understand they are the true enemy, we wouldn't try to overcome them. We would try to confront them. We will not try to destroy them. Only when we realize that those defilements, those delusions, those negative emotions, those destructive emotions are the real enemy. And they are the real source of our suffering and pain. If our understanding of that is very superficial, only on surface, our practice to overcome them will be also superficial, artificial, not deep enough. But if we have deep understanding, profound understanding of that, then your practice will be more deeper. Our practice will be more deeper. Our practice will be more profound. And so understanding, the nature of the delusions or defilements, the functioning of the defilement delusions, how the defilement delusion arises, due to what cause and condition it arises, and how does it affect us, oneself and others, what are the effects of those delusions, and so on, so on. Understanding that is very important. And that is the very core of Buddha's teachings. That is the very core of Buddha's teachings. One of the core teachings of Buddha's teachings is to understanding our own those negative emotions better. And through that, then how to reduce and overcome them and find more lasting happiness. So with that kind of understanding, then not being attached to samsara at all and samsaric experiences, even the not being attached to even the samsaric pleasure, and when we are able to let go of being attached to samsara and samsaric pleasure, then we'll be able to focus more on towards the happiness of liberation, nirvana. Otherwise, when you talk about liberations or nirvana or happiness or liberation, nirvana, it is always on side. It's not the main focus of our life, our practice. And still, we continue to chase after the samsaric pleasure and objects that give us samsaric pleasure. Otherwise, we keep on being distracted, running after them, chasing after them continually, and never find to really focus on towards the practice of true liberations or nirvana. Mm. And with that understanding, they're not being attached to samsara and samsaric pleasure, happiness, and contaminated happiness, and then continue to work for the true towards the happiness of liberation, nirvana. True happiness of liberation, nirvana, is the practice of the Bodhisattvas. Um, that is explained in verse number 9. And in order to overcome the defilement, the delusions, we need to cultivate the path, and that can act as an antidote, um, counter force, and destroy those defilements. And the biggest antidotes, the most powerful antidotes, or weapon that can destroy those defilements, is wisdom that realizes the ultimate truth directly, or emptiness directly. That is the biggest antidote, weapon that can destroy the defilements, the delusions. And so we need to develop that wisdom, and that realize the ultimate truth directly. And in order to have that, wisdom, direct realization, and emptiness, first we need to have a realization that comes through, inference, through reasoning and logic analysis, you know. And in order to have that kind of special insight of the wisdom, which we need to have a very strong, in our meditation, strong analysis, with the reasoning and logic and so forth. We need a very strong, powerful mind to be able to analyze without distractions. Very powerful mind in order to have that. And in order to have that kind of strong mind without distractions, and then we need to cultivate and develop the shamatha, karma abiding, the meditative concentrations. And in order to have a very strong realization of meditative concentration or shamatha, karma abiding, we need a strong practice or foundation, strong practice foundation of the moral ethical discipline. And so, in order to free from the samsara, in order to free from the defilement, the delusions, we need to have these three training or practice: the training of moral discipline, the training of meditative concentration, and the training of wisdom. Through those three training, then we can overcome the defilements. Having overcome the defilement, then we can overcome the delusion. The delusion or defilement, then we can overcome the samsara and the sufferings. So engaging in the three higher training, in order to overcome the defilements, and to free from the samsara, motivated by the loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, is the practice of the bodhisattva. So that is, I think, more or less the meaning of the verse number 9. And for the bodhisattvas, the bodhisattvas practitioner, Bodhi means enlightenment or awakening. Sattva is being, So the Bodhisattvas means someone who has cultivated effortless awakening mind of bodhicitta, which we'll talk a little bit more. And for the Bodhisattvas, their um, purpose of engaging their spiritual path, you know, uh, is to liberate and to help to liberate all sentient beings from all their suffering and cause of suffering, and to lead them to their ultimate happiness of full enlightenment. That is the main purpose. That is the main reasons. That is the main the motivating factor for them to engage in the Bodhisattva's path or spiritual path. And in order to do that, they recognize they need to achieve fully enlightenment themselves, and so therefore their practice is to actualize their own highest potential, so they can be the greatest help and benefit to liberate and free all sentient beings from all the suffering, all kinds of sufferings, and the cause of all the suffering permanently, and to guide and lead them to ultimate happiness. And so in order to achieve that, in order to achieve that fully awakened state of Buddhahood, then one need to engage into the path, the path of compassion, or the bodhisattva mind, and the wisdom. Both of them are necessary in order to achieve non-abiding nirvana or liberations. Here you see, even here you see that, well, here it doesn't just, it says no extreme of existence. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the term they use, non-abiding nirvana, is to differentiate from the individual liberation or nirvana. So, and that the Buddhahood or the fully awakened state is sometimes in the scriptures you find as non-abiding nirvana, and instead of saying nirvana, and that is to differentiate. Nirvana is more, individual liberation, whereas non-abiding is not abiding in that individual liberations, and so the Buddhahood, the fully awakened state. And in order to achieve that, non-abiding liberation or nirvana, then we need these two wings of the compassion, the method, and the wisdom. Both of them equally important. In one of the sutras, it says, compassion without wisdom is bondage. Compassion with wisdom is liberation. Wisdom without compassion is bondage, and wisdom with compassion is liberation. And so the importance of, in order to have non-abiding liberation, you need both wisdom and the compassion equally. And compassion supporting the implementing the wisdom, and wisdom implementing the compassion. And with that together, then you can not only overcome the defilements, but also the imprint left by the defilements. And through overcoming both obscuration, the obscuration defilement, or obscurations of the subtle obscurations of the knowledge, then one can become fully awakened and fully enlightened. And so therefore, then here, the author Togme Sangpo explaining about the compassion, the method, and then the wisdom. And so first starting with the method, the Bodhisattva mind. So then in verse number 10, what is the point of one's own happiness if the mothers who have been merciful to oneself since beginningless time suffer? Therefore is a practice of conqueror children to generate the mind of enlightenment in order to free the infinite sentient beings. So here he's saying, even though by engaging into three high training and having engaged in three high training, even though we are able to overcome the defilement, the delusions, having overcome the defilement and delusions, we are free from the samsara, we are free from the suffering. Even you have, and free from the suffering and have a ultimate happiness of nirvana, even you have this lasting true happiness of liberations. But if the rest of the mother sentient beings that are surrounding you are suffering, how can you be so happy? How can you kind of not feel for them, the mother sentient beings who has been so kind, compassionate to us so many times from the beginner's lifetimes, So it is saying, how can a mother be so happy when the mother see her loving the child, the only loving child suffering there, So therefore, um, um, so if we think, even in this life, even if we don't talk, even we don't talk for many lifetimes, even we don't talk for many, even just one lifetime, even in this lifetime, for our growth, for our survival, for our happiness, for our enjoyment, we are very dependent on contributions and kindness of other sentient beings all the time, all the time. When we came in this world, we didn't know anything how to take care of ourselves. When you're most vulnerable, we don't know how to walk, we don't know how to eat, we don't know what is harmful, what is helpful, all of that. So vulnerable, so vulnerable. If the parent or person who is in charge doesn't, if they are not attentive, the child could lose their life easily by engaging in something dangerous things because they don't know. We might have broken many things, fallen everywhere. And because there is someone who is constantly attentive, watching, therefore we are still, that we didn't broke all our legs, heads, or we are still alive. And as we grow up, not only our parents, others, friends, families, who help us to, take care of as a child. So many people have helped their parents. And as we go to school, teachers, assistants, and friends, so many people involved. Without them, we wouldn't have the education we have. Without their help, we would not have the education that we have so far. Without the help of so many people that we have met in our life, we would not be able to know so many things that we have learned in our life. We will be so ignorant about so many things. Mm. And of course, when we get sick, we are so dependent on others. When you get sick, when you are unhealthy, we depend on so much on others. Others' kindness, care, compassion, you know. And as we get older, um, and when we become less independent, then again we become more and more dependent on kindness and care and love of others. So, our survival in this world so much depend on others. Mm. It is one thing, sometimes, sometimes one of the things, I feel people feel, sometimes I feel there are a lot of people who feel very um, um, I don't know, very negative, or um, who feel not enough, there are not compassionate people in the world, who doesn't care about others, so on, so on. You know, I don't think that is the case. Of course, not in all of us cannot, even if we have the wish to help someone, we are not being able to help everyone with our limitations of with our time, with our energy, our resources. Even though you would like to help everyone, you are unable to do that. You know, um, but one of the things sometimes I feel people feel that way. Sometimes when they need help because they feel they are not getting help. But sometimes the problem is not there is no one who is helping you. People are unwilling to ask for help. They don't ask for help and they expect someone to have some kind of clairvoyance and show up there. Do you get it? And someone's not feeling well, or maybe whatever they should be able to ask it. If they ask it, if someone is available, there will be someone who will be available. You should be able to ask many more. You ask someone, and then maybe someone is too busy, and someone is they have their own problem, and for that day or that week or that time they are unable to, and then someone started to feel nobody really cares about me, and become very um, depressed or negative, you know. Um, but if you ask, I think it seems that is one of the big problem for us, our, whether you call it, our egoistic mind, you know, our egoistic mind, um, because we don't feel, especially especially in certain cultures, you know, if you are not independent, this sense of feeling you are worthless or whatever, I don't know. So even sometimes when someone offers a help, people doesn't take it. They don't want it. Because if they take the help, they feel like they are, I don't know what they feel. Maybe they feel they are no more independent. And therefore, maybe, I don't know, they started to have a bad feeling about themselves. I have no idea. But sometimes even the others can see they need help, but from their side, they refuse help, refuse to get the help. So, what I'm saying is, yeah, there are people are in general compassionate, kind. Just because someone is not there at that time doesn't mean they are uncompassionate. For whatever reason, sometimes they are unable to be there, and we all have that experience. We all have that experience. Even someone you care and love very much, and you want to be for them. Sometimes there are certain time when, in certain days, in certain hours, even you want to be there, you can't be there. That doesn't mean you don't care about them, you don't love about them. That doesn't mean you will not help them later. And so, mm, so basically what I'm saying, so, and then, everything that, the food that we enjoy and that we need for survival, um, the clothes that we need for our comfort, for our protection, the house, all the convenience, the things that we use in every day, the job we get, all of them, depend on others' support, others' kindness, others' help, others' contributions. Even the joy of happiness, that we get because we feel people like us, people love you, people care you, all of that, or whatever small praise, reputation, good, all of them, all again depends on others' kindness, compassion. Um, and so when we see it, if we really reflect, contemplate, you know, more on deeply, we can see the kindness, the compassion, the support, the care of others through our life by so many people. Many of the peoples that when we were young, who supported and who were kind and generous and compassionate, many of them now are not in our mind anymore. You know, we don't even know where they are now. We don't even know whether they are still alive or not. From among them, maybe there might be a couple of people that we still have contact or still we know, but many of them we don't know. And many other people, strangers, people that we've met through our life at different places and comes and help and support. So throughout our life, we have met so many people who have been supportive, kind, compassion, caring. But a lot of them is not in our mind anymore. We have forgot about them. But it is not that we didn't have the love, compassion, care, support of others. So many different people at different life, at different time, in different ways have been. So therefore, that being the case, when all sentient beings has been for us, how can we kind of be ignore about their pain, their sufferings, when they have been supportive and kind and compassionate to us when you are in the problems, when you are suffering? How can we ignore others' suffering and pain and not have any concern for them and not to act in any way toward, if there is any way we can to reduce? And so, you know, mm, and if we look from many lifetimes, then, you know, each and every sentient beings, it's just we don't remember, but each and every sentient beings has been more compassionate, more kind, caring mothers, fathers, friends, grandparents, um, all of that, children, not only one time, many, many times, where they have sacrificed, where they have given their own happiness, their own life for us. We don't remember. If we take even, if even in the animal realms, you can see, how the parent, when they brought up the child, how much hardship they go through in order to bring the child until they are independent, where they can go themselves, when they are able to, until they teach them how to, in terms of those hunting animals, until they know how to hunt and able to hunt. Until then, the parents, especially the mother, is always there, and they are willing to defend them, even in the course of their own life. So many of them. That is, and sometimes, those poor small animals, they don't have any defense, but still they try to. I saw one video clips, where a rabbit is trying to chase a snake because the snake was trying to kill her baby. And so you can imagine, the rabbit has nothing really kind of to add, but just with all her power, she just jump, And you can see birds, small birds trying to fight the big birds or snakes in order to defend the child, In some cases, they could be injured, they could lose their life, but, you see in animal realms is so, you can see how much they do for the child. I'm sure when the child grow up and they are independent, probably they never remember that, hardly remember that, forget that. And it happens same with the human beings as well. We forget how much others have done to us, Those which we remember, the memory are very clear what bad thing they have done to us. We never forget that. One bad thing, there don't need to be many bad things. Someone has, scolded at you, yelled at you, said something uncompassionate, unkind words, probably we remember that, still we remember, probably remember that. But someone has done so much for us when we were young, probably we don't remember all of them. Mm. And so we can see how, you know, even in my cases, you know, I don't remember so much about, you know, what my parent did when I was very young. You know, my memory is very loose, or hardly remember. I can only kind of infer and think what they did by just observing when I see a parent trying to take care of their small child. I can only see that is most likely that is how they took care of me in similar way, you know. So of course I have more memory as I grow up later, but especially when you are most vulnerable, when you're so vulnerable, when you are until 2-3 years, you know, those memory, I don't have much memory of that. And that is probably the most, the hardest time and thing they have to do for me, being there me all the times, caring and all of that. And that is the same with all of us, you know. So by reflecting, contemplating on that, and then feeling the kindness of others, love of others, care of others. That is the way we, if you really feel love of others, if you really can feel kindness of others, care of others, then compassion and love towards them will come naturally. When you don't feel someone's compassion, someone's care, someone's love, it is more harder for us to feel compassion back to them. And so in order to feel others' love, others' compassion, others' care, we need to reflect, meditate, contemplate on all the support, all the kindness, all the care that others has done in our life. Even though we cannot remember in the past, you know, past lives, at least we can remember to a certain degree if you pay attention in this life. And the more you feel that, then the more you feel, you know, it is not only few individuals who have been kind and compassionate to you, so many people throughout our life from our birth until now. And we will continue to, until we die, we will continue to receive more love, more compassion, more care, more support from others. So it is important to feel that. If you feel someone's love, compassion, care, then when you see their pain, their sufferings, you will also feel the compassion for them, love for them, care for them. And that is what meditation's practice is about, you know. So through that, then trying to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, because loving kindness, compassion is the loving kindness, compassion, good heart is fundamental cause for the awakened mind, the Bodhisattva mind. So that, and the Bodhisattva mind is necessary to achieve fully awakened state. Also, loving kindness, compassion is source of our happiness, this life, happiness in our future life, and ultimate happiness of enlightenment, fully enlightenment, is a source of happiness for ourselves, is a source of happiness for others. And so therefore, cultivating that good heart, loving kindness, compassion, so important for yourself, for others, for your own peace, for the peace of the family, for the peace of the neighborhood, the society, the country, the world. One person's compassion can make a huge difference to the world. On the other hand, one person's anger and frustration and hatred can destroy not only themselves, but the families, the society that they live in, the country they live in, the whole world. So each person's state of mind can have a very strong impact, not only on individual level, but on the whole society, on the whole world itself. If we see, some of the worst damage that have been done in the world throughout the history, certain individuals that we can think, who kills millions of people. Those is done by one person's, and that is done by one person's hatred and anger and that. On the other hand, also there are individuals in the world out of one person's compassion, kindness, care, who has made a huge contributions to the whole world, for millions of people and the whole world, for betterness. So by understanding, recognizing others' suffering as your own suffering, and then trying to overcome the suffering of others just as you will try to overcome your own sufferings. And by understanding and recognizing your happiness, others' happiness as your own happiness, and then just as you try to improve your happiness, same way then trying to help to improve the happiness of others. And so so with that, the wish to see and have the happiness of others, and the wish to see the free from the suffering of cause of suffering and cause of suffering from others, that kind of loving kindness, compassion. On the basis of that loving kindness and compassion, then one try to generate the mind of awakening or enlightenment of the Bodhisattva mind. And so that is the practice of the Bodhisattvas, generating that Bodhicitta mind, the awakening mind of Bodhicitta mind, driven by loving kindness and compassion, by seeing and understanding the suffering of others, and in order to free them from sufferings, and in order to lead them to not only temporary happiness but ultimate happiness. In order to do that, then the wish to achieve the fully enlightenment. In order to do that, that is the Bodhicitta mind, and engaging into practice in order to cultivate the Bodhicitta mind, for those who have not already generated, trying to generate them. For those who have already generated, not to diminish, not to disintegrate, but working to increase more and more. That is the Bodhisattva's practice. Again, and in terms of cultivating the Bodhicitta mind, in the Buddhist scriptures, you find certain different meditation and method, and particularly two method, what we call seven point of cause and effect, and then another method, equalizing, exchanging self with others. And in a way, I think maybe this one explained the first, that verse number 10 explained the first method of seven cause and effect. And then second, the 11 verses explain the other method, equalizing and exchanging self with others, in order to cultivate that Bodhicitta mind.
Saying that's in this book here?
Yeah, it is not going detail, but it just touch on that. The verse number 10 touch on that, the first method, even though it doesn't go detail, and the 11 touch on the equalizing, exchanging self with others, that method, again, even though it doesn't go detail in that. So I think because he's going through that, with each verses, he doesn't go so detailed. Each of them, he just touch on that. And in terms of in terms of the method of cultivating Bodhicitta mind, on the basis of the meditation of 7 point of cause and effect, first recognizing all sentient beings as being most kind mother, and then remember the kindness and cultivating the wish to repay the kindness, and then cultivating loving kindness, and then compassion, and then special attitude or universal responsibility, different translation, whatever you call, but taking the responsibility to free all sentient beings by yourself, and to lead them to happiness by yourself, not only wishing them to be free from suffering, and not only wishing them to have happiness, but again cultivating this attitude by taking responsibility by yourself to do that, and that is the special attitude or universal. And then on the basis of that, then you generate the awakening mind and Bodhicitta, the effect, the result. The first 6 are the cause, and then 7 is the result. That is why it's called 7 point of cause and effect. First, and so then at the very beginning, when we train, like in every realizations or in every experiences, through practice and meditations, at the very beginning, it requires efforts, you know. It doesn't come effortlessly. Even the loving kindness, compassion, bodhisattva mind, all of them, it comes with effort. You try to reflect, contemplate by using examples, reasoning, logics. In some cases, if it helping the certain quotations that you feel related with particular teachers, particular quotations. If it helps, you can also use those quotations as a tools to generate that, you know, whatever realizations or whatever realization understandings that you are trying to achieve in regard to whatever topic or the subject. And of course, at the very beginning, it comes with effort, you know, and then as you do the practice again and again, then it requires less and less effort. And then slowly, then whether it's loving kindness, or whether it's compassion, or whether it's the bodhisattva mind, then you are able to generate effortlessly. Effortlessly, day and night. And when you have developed that awakening mind, the bodhisattva mind effortlessly, then that is when you have the realization of bodhisattva, and the person who have actually developed that become a bodhisattvas. And known as the children of the Buddhas, you know, or the bodhisattvas, once you have that. And once you have the bodhisattva mind, you know, that effortless bodhisattva mind, from that moment, you know, whatever virtuous activities that you engage into, they all become cause of enlightenment, fully enlightenment. And they all become bodhisattvas practices, you know. And therefore, as Shandideva explained, you know, in the chapter 1 of his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, you know, when we have generated the bodhisattva mind, and then each moment, each second, you accumulate incredible amount of virtues of the merit, you know. And also is one of the most powerful tools to purify as well. Very powerful practice or state of mind or tools to purify as well as accumulate merit. In order to accumulate merit is necessary, because if you want to help others, you need merit. If you don't have merit, you cannot help others in many different ways. So, you know, merit is what is the positive energy, karma, and the virtues, you know, that we create, which is necessary in order to have a realization within ourselves, in order to have a better practice, more smooth practice, less obstacles, with the right conditions. And in order to have that, and in order to have, through that practice, to have realizations, not only that, in order to be more help, more benefit to others, you need the support of the merit. And so therefore, as it's mentioned, you know, for example, an act of generosity, of feeding, let's say, your dogs, your cat, you know, the act of feeding your dog or cat, whether that become the Bodhisattva practice or not, it depends on the mind. If you have the Bodhisattva mind, motivation Bodhisattva mind, that becomes Bodhisattva practice. If you don't have that, whether it becomes cause of fully enlightenment or not, it depends on that. And so therefore, when you have then fully enlightenment, and so therefore, even though you are feeding one animals, one sentient beings, but because of your Bodhisattva mind, it equals to feeding all sentient beings in terms of the merit. Because even though practical level in actions, you are just feeding one, but your intention and motivations is feeding that one in order to help and benefit all sentient beings. Your intention is not only to help that just one sentient being, which you are on practical, on action, you are helping that directly, but indirectly, the intention, the motivations to help benefit all sentient beings. In order to do that, then you are helping one sentient beings directly now. And so for that, then you get equal number of the virtues, the merit, as equal number of all sentient beings. And therefore, there is a saying in the Kadamba Master, if you have the Bodhisattva mind, by itself will purify, by itself will accumulate merit. And so it is, and if we really think it is the only Bodhisattva mind, that this attitude which put others before oneself, that puts the others before oneself. Even in terms of individual liberation, is more of putting oneself before others. But it's the Bodhisattva mind that puts others first. And we cherish others more than oneself. We put others first than oneself. Is very precious, for a lot of us, sometimes even forget about having the Bodhisattva mind itself. Even a lot of people doesn't even have that concept, or even think that is impossible, or even think that is not a positive, healthy, where everyone thinks we should be the first. And that is the way all the problem comes. That is the way all the effort comes. I feel I must be the first, and you feel you must be the first. And everyone feels that, and we can't be first, and then we fight with each other. And that is also why we get hurt. Because we feel, someone didn't put me first. I should be the first. Sometimes we get, hurt. Very small, tiny things. Very small, tiny things. Even someone appreciates you calling on the stage because your name was not called first, people get hurt. And someone cannot call all the names together, and people get hurt. Instead of being very grateful that you are actually instead of being very appreciated that you have been called and acknowledged, and appreciative. Oh, he called me, but he didn't call me first, and someone else was called. I wasn't as appreciated that person. It's a very simple example of like that, you know. And we have so many cases that every day like that. Every day. And that is because our egoistic mind thinks I should be the first one. If we don't have that kind of egoistic mind, you don't care whether you are called in the last or the first. Very grateful someone is appreciating you. Instead of being hurt, grateful, happy, thankful, gratitude. So what kind of, experience we have depends on what state of mind we have. And when we have in that state of egoistic mind, that is instead of being happy and grateful, you become disappointed and hurt. And on the other hand, with the Bodhisattva mind, when you cherish others, when you put someone else first, when someone calls you before you, you will be so happy. You will be so happy instead of being hurt. Even though you are the last to get the help, you will be so happy. And so, so generating true love, compassion, Bodhisattva mind is not easy. It requires effort, time, practice. But if we can cultivate that, then we will be much more happy in our life. Much more happy. Not to talk about higher rebirth in the futures, becoming cause for fully enlightenment, all of that. Even in this life, you will be much more happier. You will have less enemy. You will have less people disliking you. You will have more people who like you. You will have more people who want to be around you. Even though whether that is the good all the time or not. We have, that is another problem, when you have delusion. When you don't have, you have problem. When you have, you problem. If there is no one around you, you feel there is no one who cares about me, love around me. If so many people come every day to you, say hi and nice and this, you feel, oh, I'm tired of it. I wish I can have a more quiet place, quiet time. We have problem with all of that. If you have, you have problem. If you don't have, you have problem. What to do? That is the delusions. Again, as we reflect, it becomes more and more clear how the delusion makes us so unhappy. No way of being happy all the time. When you don't have rain and snow, we're unhappy. When there is a lot of snow and happy, again, people start to be unhappy about that too. And so it is always like that. So anyway, I was talking about, so when we have such a strong loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, even though not only the people, even the animals can feel that energy. Even they feel that energy, even they feel more safe and to be around that kind of. There is even stories of the author, Togme Sangpo. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, he was known as Bodhisattvas even at that time, in his time, because of his actions and all of that. And there is saying when he was in hermitage, meditating, by himself, I think there was wolf or fox, and that became it became like his pet. So the problem with us is we want more friends and we want people to like us, but then our, self-cherishing thought, egoistic mind come out of that. Then, we demand, we demands. You have to like me, You have to like me. You have to care me. You have to love me. That does not work the way things works. You can't demand, whether it is a love, whether it is a compassion, whether it is respect, You have to earn from your practice, all of that. And when we have that kind of loving kindness, compassion, that will happen. You don't have to demand anything like that. On the other hand, if you don't have that, if you have egoistic, selfish motivation and intention, and you will try to demand all of that from your children, from our friends, our couple, our partner, and so you will never get that. And we become even more upset and angry because you are not getting what you want. And so therefore, cultivating loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind is so crucial, important in our life to be more healthy, more happy, more stable. The more loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, the less fear you have about others. Less compassion we have, the more selfish attitudes, more egoistic mind, the more we have fear of others. And that we see in the world, we can see with our own experience, we can see in the world, the more selfish, the more self-centered, the less compassion, the more fear they have about other people's. Those who are more compassionate, more kind, they have less fear about others. And so therefore, definitely, you have also more, when you live with that kind of loving kindness, compassion, you have less fear. Fear is one of the big factors in our life that make us unhappy, miserable. And also fear gives rise to anger and hatred. As one of the His Holiness Dalai Lama's teachers, Kunu Lama, as he said, and he himself also has been, all his life he has practiced in bodhicitta. and he has composed one text, with his own personal experiences, writing one verses each day of his experience with that bodhicitta mind. And as he said, when you are lazy, practice the bodhicitta mind, and then you will not be lazy. When you are distracted, practice the bodhicitta mind, you will be not distracted. When your mind is low, self-hatred or low self-esteem, practice the bodhicitta that would uplift your mind. When you are too arrogant, practice the bodhicitta mind that will make you more humble, more practice humility. So it's the key that bodhicitta is the key in dealing with so many of those negative emotions and actions that can help. If you are not arrogant, if you are neither too arrogant when things goes well, when you are not too low when things doesn't go well, to be able to keep it stable all the time. The bodhicitta helps to do that. And also in practice, sometimes we are too lazy, we don't do anything. And sometimes we get so distracted with other things. And again, bodhicitta helps us to again bring into that. And if you want to be happy, practice bodhicitta. If you want others to be happy, practice bodhicitta. If you want to be happy now, practice bodhicitta. If you want to be happy in the future, long term, practice the bodhicitta. And so that is the message that he found with his own experience of that. And those are the verses that he wrote. I think there were 300 something verses that he wrote each day. And it is from him His Holiness received the teaching on Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, the oral transmission and teaching. Of course, he have reached also others, but at the very beginning from him, especially the oral transmission. And he was a lay practitioner, but that was what his main practice, his whole main practice of bodhicitta. And he was so humble, and he just kind of, even though he had so much knowledge, experiences, realizations, he just acted as a very normal, ordinary person, going to in India, river Ganges, and just hanging around there with people here and there. Nobody really knew he was a great practitioner, great scholar, incredible, like a jewel, until His Holiness Dalai Lama found out about him and started taking teaching from him. Only then he was known to the rest of the practitioner in the world that he was not just an ordinary, he was great scholar, he was great practitioner, and great practitioner of especially the bodhicitta mind, His name Kunulama Tenzin Gyatso, I think Tenzin Gyatso, not Gyatso, I don't, it's Kunulama. I have to find, I think Tenzin, could be Tenzin Gyatso, but yeah, he passed away, but His Holiness Dalai Lama received many teaching from him. And so that was his. And if you think, the whole essence of the Buddha's teachings, it all comes to the bodhicitta mind, the essence of Buddha's teachings. The whole essence of Buddha's teachings, even the teaching that he gave to have a individual liberations for arhat. Even those teachings were given in such way because they were not ready to receive the Bodhisattva teaching at the moment, to lead to that, and then eventually lead towards the, again, Bodhisattva's path. And so the whole teaching is to show the path to each and every sentient being to achieve their highest potential, fully awakened state, by seeing everyone has that potential, and therefore how to show that path according to individual understanding, individuals' um, um, predispositions, interests, and that. But gradually, all those teachings were directed, gradually leading towards Bodhisattva and towards Bodhisattva path and towards fully enlightenment. So it comes again, the essence is come to the Bodhisattva mind. And so we will kind of stop here.